Hello fellow inchers, welcome back to another video. Today we're back on another kit build video with our Bell P39 Aircobra from Hobby Boss. Anyway, a very nice aircraft so far. The only regarding building, the only thing that has really changed since you've seen it last is that the propeller here has been painted black. The canopy has been placed on and painted. Other than that, nothing else has changed. And of course, obviously, there's masking tape to follow along on the lines on our American spec one, because we are going with the American spec, not the Russian spec. Simply because the fact is I've managed to do some history on the American spec to variant, and I've actually been able to find out that our aircraft is actually still around. So I always aim, if I can, to go for aircraft that still has survived, rather than, unless it's got a really interesting backstory to it, I don't tend to want to do aircraft that's not around no more. That's my personal opinion. I don't. If anyone else has any other opinions on that, that's understandable. But for now, let's get on with painting our aircraft. From our box on our instructions, we got all the tail is white from the top and the bottom, so that's going to be quite an easy place to do. And then the wingtips, or front leading edge of the wings, I've got this like white band over them, so we're going to do that first and then move on then with the brownish green. I think this is the best one to go for regarding that. If not, it's probably going to be this one. And apologies about the light, it's not the best, but I haven't got any better lighting equipment at the moment, but I'll probably be able to do something in editing. Anyway, let's get on with it.
I put the top down and get into gear. The engine softly purring. It's been so long, my heart is yearning. Fire up the engine. The freeway's so clear, and you're my every reason. You're everything that I believe in. Get in your car and drive this long and winding road. Shift into overdrive. I know your love will carry me home. South Coast Highway, skies are so blue. South Coast Highway takes me to you. It's our last chance, ain't no modern romance. South Coast Highway, love built to last. Those miles will speed by as I drive along.
Right, fellow Rangers, now we've got the white mainly done, and it's had 2 coats of the white, and I think it's come out really well. So we will move on to the rest of all the green, because that's essentially what it is, and then the underneath and essentially the rest of the aircraft. I think this little aircraft's going to be pretty good, because the fact is, it, apart from this little thing here you see there, it all fitted together as well as it should. And apart from that little bit, it's a good. I've really enjoyed building this P39 Aircobra so far. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea because it's not a well-known aircraft, but it is doing very, very well regarding the build part, and I'm loving that fact. So we will move on to the rest of it.
Say what you want to me, I don't really care. Won't stay to find out what you need. I'm not that lonely. It's not about the things you said or what you say you believe. Count the hours until you say you'll leave. I'm not your whipping boy, boy. You broke my world to pieces, you destroyed. Whoa. Every night you find me screaming, stand up and shout. Every morning I'll be waiting. Stand up and shout. I'll be praying that you've gone. Stand up and shout. I can hear the words you're saying. Stand up and shout. I'll be praying that you've gone. You won't take a piece of me. I'm no open door. Fake heartache's easy to ignore. The same old story. It's not about the clothes you wear or the way you move. I'll find my own way, got nothing to prove. It's my right to choose, choose. Gonna be no winners when you lose. Oh, every night you find me screaming, stand up and shout. Every morning I'll be waiting. Stand up and shout. I'll be praying that you've gone. Stand up and shout. I can hear the words you're saying. Stand up and shout. I'll be praying that you've gone.
Right, fellow inchers, that's all the paint work done on our P39 Aircobra. But I think I've matched the colour the best that I can, simply because of the fact that when there is photos of our actual P39 Aircobra about, because it did survive the war, which is nice to know. So all we got to do now is the water slides. That's why it's a little bit darker than it would have been. It's simply because of the fact that it is essentially trying to match it up to exactly what it looks like in real life at the moment. Because it did survive, which is nice to know. Right. I'm just cutting out the actual water slides now. As they do look in very... first time I've used water slides from this company. Yeah, so we'll hopefully these water slides are as good as they should be, because the fact that we want our P39 Aircobra to look as correct as it should be. Fortunately, on the back of the box, we've got the actual water slides instructions, which I'll just double check. Yep, 17's on the wings, and 18 is so 17 ones are on the wings and 18 ones are on the fuselage. Right, we'll just cut out the ones for the wings because fortunately I do have backups just in case. It's not from Hobby Boss, of course, but from other builds that I could have used American water slides for. So we will get on with that now.
I confess there is some truth in shady rumors of my youth. I drank, I stole, I rocked, I rode. I'm not ashamed, my past I own. Live a life less ordinary, the only way to be. 9 to 5's illusionary, how could I be me? I live for the sun, forget the hate, banish the pain. Back when I was young, no one could tame our summer rain. No desire to break the rules, but I won't follow like a fool. I'm not defined by other men, I stand alone until the end. Live a life less ordinary, the only way to be. 9 to 5's illusionary, how can I be me? I live for the sun, forget the hate, banish the pain. Back when I was young, no one could tame our summer rain.
Right, fellow Rangers, as you can see from the last clip and in my hand, our P39 build is essentially finished. It's amazing little aircraft, apart from one little fitting issue that I had by here. It was an amazing little kit. It has really surprised me on how good it was. So I've used other manufacturers' kits in the past, and I'm not saying names because it could be just the luck of the draw sometimes, but sometimes they can be a little bit harder, but fair play. Apart from that, it was an amazing little kit, and I think this is a relatively old one. I'm going to presume that simply because of the fact that I haven't really looked at when it was moulded or built, this kit. So, but yes, I've really enjoyed this kit. Good little aircraft. After a little brief history of the P39 from the top of my head, it was essentially developed as a interceptor, and unfortunately, due because for I think it's something to do with the engine, and it was not fast enough to reach up a high altitudes over 30,000 feet, and it never really worked out because a lot of combat regarding fighting, air-to-air dogfights and stuff, is normally above that. So, and essentially, I don't think it had the opportunity to prove itself, from what I've been able to see, because from my research so far, the Russians actually loved them. The fact that I think is the fact that another thing was a rare feature that the P39 Aircobra had was the fact that they had a heater inside the cab, in the cockpits essentially, and it's just it got to the point where Stalin went up to Roosevelt and asked for more P39 Aircobras, specifically Aircobras. I know I've painted that one in the US spec, but I honestly, that has surprised me in a way. It is a pretty looking little aircraft, I think, in my personal opinion. Your mileage may vary, everyone else has a different opinion. A lot of people think World War II aircraft, they immediately think of the iconic Spitfire and the BF-109, but I don't just look at them because they're beautiful as well, but aircraft like this, P-39, is something that should be cherished as well. So right, let's do a proper history, a brief history of the Bell P-39 Aircobra. And if I can find a history of our P39, I know it is still around, which is OnePlus. But the history with it, the story behind it, as in the service history, I may not be able to get. If I can't, I'll just put the pictures up and then go from there. So let's look at the history of not just the Bell P39 Aircobra, but of the actual, if we can, our P39 Aircobra.
The Bell P-39 Aircobra is a fighter produced by Bell Aircraft for the United States Army Air Forces during World War II. It was one of the principal American fighters in service when the United States entered combat. The P-39 was used by the Soviet Air Force, which used it to score the highest number of kills attributed to any U.S. fighter type flown by any Air Force in any conflict. Other major users of the type included the Free French, the Royal Air Force, and the Italian Co-Belligerent Air Force. The P-39 had an unusual layout, with the engine installed in the center fuselage, behind the pilot, and driving a tractor propeller in the nose with a long shaft. It was also the first fighter fitted with a tricycle undercarriage. Although its mid-engine placement was innovative, the P-39 design was handicapped by the absence of an efficient turbo supercharger, preventing it from performing high-altitude work. For this reason it was rejected by the RAF for use over Western Europe but adopted by the USSR, where most air combat took place at medium and lower altitudes. Together with the derivative P-63 King Cobra, the P-39 was one of the most successful fixed-wing aircraft manufactured by Bell.
Right, fellow Rangers, very good news. I have actually found out some more information on our P-39 Aircobra, and it's actually got a nickname. I really didn't think much. I thought just a pilot just stuck the name on the aircraft and didn't think about looking into it. But it's actually called Snook the Second, which you can just about see there on the nose. It was built in Buffalo, which I've only just found this out, and this is another thing I love about finding out about the aircraft history about certain aircraft, because a lot of this information is not known to a lot of others, and some people may find it very, very interesting, like myself. And pretty much it's nice to know that the aircraft is still around. There is a YouTube channel which is better than saying it than I am, and they know what they're talking about. So I will leave the link to that video in the description below. So definitely give that a look, because that gives a really deep look into, from expert eyes of Snook II, but I have found history of Snook. Look, our P39. So let's see our P39's history. Or a brief history anyway.
Built by Bell in Buffalo, New York. Delivered to the U.S. Army Air Force, USAF, as P-39Q-5, B Aircobra serial number 42 to 19,995. One of 148 P-39Q-5, B Aircobras modified into a P-39Q-6, B modified for photographic reconnaissance with K-24 and K-25 cameras in the rear fuselage. Disassembled and shipped overseas to the Southwest Pacific Area, SWPA, and reassembled. Wartime history. Assigned to the 5th Air Force, 5th AF, 8th Fighter Group, 8th FG, 36th Fighter Squadron, 36th FS. No known nose art or nickname. Later, assigned to the 71st Tactical Reconnaissance Group, 71st TRG, 82nd Tactical Reconnaissance Squadron, 82nd TRS. Assigned to Lieutenant William A. Shomo with Crew Chief Ralph Winkle from Milwaukee, Wisconsin and Mike Janigian from Fresno, California. Also, Betty Lou III, on the right side of the fuselage above the exhaust stacks and Fresno, California, below, both painted in yellow, painted by the crew chief on the side of the fuselage, for his hometown and names of his brothers' wives. Later, nicknamed Snook II, was painted in yellow on the right side on the nose. This aircraft was one of 6 that bore the Snook's nickname. Shomo flew this Aircobra in combat over New Guinea. This aircraft was hit twice by a .25 caliber rifle bullet fired from the ground. During December 1944, this P-39 was abandoned at Taji Airfield. Wreckage. Until 1974, this aircraft remained in situ at Taji Airfield located between Lemying Village and Voka Village. Salvage. In 1974, this aircraft was salvaged by Charles Darby as part of a recovery operation funded by David Talachette / Yesterday's Air Force, Mark. Afterwards, exported to the United States. Charles Darby adds, I don't know much about what happened to the XPNG P-39s after they were delivered to Dave Talachette. This is partly because Dave's people made no effort to identify which fuselage halves and wing sets they were nailing together to make complete airframes, and partly because no records were kept of which airframes went where. I do know that 42 to 19,995 was one of the Taji aircraft, and I do know that he sent a number of P-39 and P-40 airframes to MAPS for restoration, but so far as I can see they have played around with them for many years with little being achieved and several airframes being unsold. 995 is probably one of these airframes, so my guess is that it really is now in Buffalo. Storage. In Aircobra was partially restored by Yesterday's Air Force, YAF, at Chino Airport, then placed into storage. During 1980, Anthony LaRusso, then chairman of Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Servicemen's Park, contacted David Talachette and asked him to donate an Aircobra to their memorial. During December 1980, transported cross-country by Walt Runnels of Holton Livestock Express from California to New York. While in transit, the company was offered $110,000 for the Aircobra display. On December 29, 1980, this Aircobra arrived at Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Servicemen's Park. On January 2, 1981, reassembled, painted and placed on display on the museum floor using volunteer labor including Truman Partridge, Dick Smith, Bob Dromerhauser, Joe Cuddy, Boy Hayes, John Branning and Dick Reading, among others. On March 27, 1981, officially unveiled to the public. On March 25, 1981, William A. Shomo visited the museum to see his former aircraft. Re-restoration. During the middle 2000, the P-39 was disassembled and re-restored. The aircraft returned to the museum on March 29, 2007 and was hung from the ceiling of the new exhibit building. During June 2024, the right side of the tail of this plane with stenciled serial number 995 was discovered as being attached to P39 and Little Sir Echo/Small Fry 42 to 19,027 being re-restored by Planes of Fame Museum. Therefore, the right side of the tail of this plane was attached to another Aircobra after the 1974 salvage or during restoration work performed by yesterday's Air Force, YAF, at Chino Airport prior to 1980.
That's one thing I always like to know, that our aircraft at an end of a build, it makes me feel even happier knowing that our aircraft and having some history on our aircraft is like an honor, honoring the pilots who fought during the war, of course. Well, it's pretty much, I always love finding out information like this. It's not. I don't just build the aircraft. I don't just research the aircraft type. If I can find the history of that aircraft, I want to find out as much as possible. And I've spoken to many different people amongst the ways of the many builds I've done so far for the channel, and it's just, I find it so much fun to find out. So that's the end of Net as we now know her as Snooks Second. One of a couple of aircraft of the name, of course, but she's going to have that name Snooks for the rest of this little kit's built life with me, and that'll be for a very, very long time to come. So thank you, Snooks Second. It has been an honour and a privilege to build you. Right. The age-old question. Then Rich will come up now. What am I going to build next? And as like last time with Snooks Second, P39, my father's picked another aircraft. It is the one, the only, the Commonwealth CA-13 Boomerang. Going to be a lot of fun to build that one. One last thing before we go, of course, another way you can help veterans from the wars, any wars, it doesn't matter which one. Well, of course, you know what I mean. But it's one way of helping is a charity out there called Models for Heroes. It's two ways of helping them. There will be a link to their website in the description below. Two ways of helping them. You can either donate some money. I know life can be difficult, but it does help them out a lot, because so far they've built over 12,000 model kits in aid of helping in our servicemen and women. But if you can't afford to build, if you can't afford to donate any money, there's another way, and I like this. If you're part of the Airfix club, essentially, you will see only Airfix, sadly, you see these flying arrows. You can, if you're not part of the Airfix club like I'm not, you can send these to the actual Models for Heroes, and they can reclaim and get a free kit to help out a service person. I honestly think that is still an amazing thing to do. That's my way of saying thank you to all of them. So if you have liked today's video, please put a like on it. And just for reference, I'm not affiliated with Models for Heroes. I just mention them because I honestly believe that I like the idea of supporting our veterans in any way, shape or form. And one last thing, if it is your first video with me and you consider subscribing to the channel, please do so, as you'll be missing out builds like this other thing. I don't just do model kits, I do car shows, car meets, car stuff as well, trains, I do all sorts. But I find that if I enjoy it, someone else might enjoy it as well. Also, who knows. Anyway, this is the Lone Ranger signing out.